Hi, Denny again, and we're back to the heart. We're going to be here a while because there's a lot to experience and feel here, and I'm going to do my best to share with you some more about the heart relative to the emotions affected here. I'm going to also go through and review just for a moment the glands, organs, and body systems that are revealed in this map. These are just symbols I like to use to help me experience them. For example, at the top, I use these two symbols, the purple circle representing the skin and the pineal, which is the darker circle on the inside, and the triangle is the pituitary. For the pituitary, the function is primarily in the brain as an organ and the central nervous system. For the thyroid function here and the parathyroid, it's the immune system, and the parathyroid function for metabolism relates here. This is a very important place for being able to experience the exchange of energy. There's a lot going on here. The organs have to do with the ears and the eyes. Down below is obviously the heart, and just above that, the thymus and the lungs. We could spend a long time describing the importance of the innocence of the thymus and the experience of the inspiration of the lungs as it relates to the heart, but not today. Come on down, we look at the liver on the right and the pancreas on the left. These are the experiences that relate to what we call number 3. And this is about the ability to have wisdom and to heal on the 3 side for the masculine. The ability to be able to process information, to be able to change the interior body chemistry function, which is a pancreatic reality. Down here is the adrenals and the black lines and the kidneys. And this is the pelvic cavity of the body, where the experience of one's personal will to live and the personal experience of individuality and self-worth and a whole bunch of other things are down here. The blue on the inside is the humility and the experience of being able to open and to change and grow and feel. Down below it, for the first time to see this, is the ascending forces. These ascending forces, they literally run through the toes, each one of the toes having 2 different acupuncture points, all of those toes like a root system coming up the interior of the body and spreading out into a descending cascade of life force. How this ascending and descending works is really quite remarkable to be able to behold. So the emotional experiences down here is this is where we began. We began on what's called this level 1. These ascending forces, they keep us moving, while at the same time dilating forces keep us moving out. In order for us to move up, we have to deal with the lessons at number 2, which is primarily fear. The number 1 lesson we have to learn where we are in this dimension is to be able to experience and know about our fear. That's why eventually the heart is so important, because we can't really get to the heart while we experience our own self-repressive, self-denying experiences of fear. These emotional patterns, both expressive and inward, they have to do with my personal passion and my personal self-image. It relates to the kidneys in relationship to the number 3. That 3 has to do with wisdom and healing. This is about the feeling of belonging. This is about community. This is about being part of something. So if I come up from myself in the first gate and I come into the community of the world, how am I going to be able to hold my personal integrity and my belief systems as I come into contact with other people? That's why 3 is so important, is where we now get to take our experiences, my own feelings, my own passion, my own creativity, my own degree of humility, out to experience relationships for the first time. This experience moves up into the heart, because the lesson that moves from here to the heart has to do with the experience of truth. The only way I move from 3 to 4 in this series of dimensions, which by the way will ultimately relate to not only the iris structure and the interior function of the body, glands and organs, but to the spirit world itself. This is somewhat at the beginning of a map that relates to the spirit world, where you and I go to inhabit after we leave this infancy called being on earth. This experience now comes from truth up into the capacity to learn to love one another. Two primary feelings here, which is primarily the feeling of love I might have for one particular person. That's called the pericardium. That's the experience of my own pure love that I might have for my own soul mate. The other experience here is my capacity to be able to have friendships and to be able to experience perhaps one of the most sacred forms of love on earth, and that's a fraternal experience of love. This fraternal experience of love means I choose to create and express love from my soul to your soul. And then eventually, the ideal form along here is to be able to receive love. Now this happens to be about the arterial function, is my capacity to be able to express and to give love. And then on the opposite side, the venous function is my capacity to be able to receive. Now the feeling of being able to receive is also the experience of being able to give complete and unconditional freedom to judge nothing. That's why on this place here I sometimes use the metaphor of the ocean that refuses no river. It's also quite remarkable, and here this is about the bowels. It's also about the spleen and how to deal with the transformation from death into life again. So that's why this whole symbol in here of the venous side of the heart is like the ocean being able to say, bring me everything that's dead and old and bring it to me. That's what this part of the bowels and this part of the spleen actually does for the heart. In doing this, what happens is an increase of the venous flow back to the heart. Am I truly as willing to give as I am to receive? Can I give without manipulation or condition? Can I give without, down here at 3, can I give without suppressing anybody else, controlling too much? Can I do it without treachery or betrayal or adultery? These are all of the experiences of human emotions, which are quite, well, important. The experience of the heart, we can go into the colon, and we can go into the ascending and descending, but we can do that later. Then above this is my two favorite symbols of the moment. If you look at this little gold crown, this is the thymus. And I can assure you there are things that are possible to feel there that I'm just beginning to feel. You know that in children the thymus covers maybe half to 2/3 of the heart. But in adults it shrivels up until it's almost detached from the heart and almost nothing. This is the gland of childlike innocence. Childlike innocence. This is a beautiful place, and by the way, this is a gland that does regenerate. We can regenerate the thymus because we choose to increase our experience of the expression of love and the feeling of innocence. At the same time, this unusual form above it, I call it the wings of the thymus. It happens to be the lungs. The lungs, the breath, the innocence, the joy. The heart function is prosperity and joy and laughter, celebration. We flourish with this. This is the flourishing of the heart. Below is the ancient cathedral of all knowledge and wisdom, understanding, collectiveness, unity, harmony. Below here is awareness, understanding, seeking, discovery, serendipity, the desire to discover truth. This is an amazing place, this number 3. Down below, well, passion. Not just passion for sex, but passion for everything. Passion for life. Passion that drives the blood. Passion that brings fire to life in the digestion, life in the heart, life in the head. This is the passion to go forward with my own soul. Down here, the feeling functions of the kidneys. Wow, difficult to describe the eternal lake of peace. Most people have no idea really what this is about, but the kidney is about peace and the ability to be able to transmit that peace to all of the water within me. So some people think the kidney is just a filtration system, but no, it's also a gland. It transmits primarily the experience of my personal feelings. So whatever my feelings are now is being transmitted to the water throughout my entire body. And the water is the means by which I experience my entire body and link that to my spiritual body. That's why the kidney function is so incredibly important. Down here there's also the bladder, where the experience of shame is. There's so much to be felt about the bladder, and oftentimes it's ignored, but the bladder has a very dear experience about childhood. This is how the whole thing began. Now this whole process going upward is that we next go into the parathyroid and the thyroid. The parathyroid has to do with the capacity to be able to make a decision, to choose something. This is where the free will resides. So what are you going to do with it? The free will resides in this place to be able to express it. There's a lot we could talk about the parathyroid's function of changing the calcium-magnesium regulation of the blood and being able to choose something and have a passion in the world. I'll show you how these are linked to different systems later, but the parathyroid is deeply involved in the experience of the thyroid. The thyroid is involved in the experience of the immune system. Well, by the way, the immune system is the only system really in the body that senses and touches the entire body. The immune system not only touches the entire body by being in the blood, outside the blood, in an organ, between the organs, on the skin, on the hair, and off the body. Science won't tell you that your immune system is actually off your body. The immune system is the empathic system. It's also the system by which we experience our unity with nature. So anything that has the relationship to the unity of all living things is the ecological experience of where I came to as a single soul with a passion, coming into a community, experiencing friendships and love, and now extending that into my love of the ecology of all living things. Compassion. This is the experience of the immune system. As we go higher, we go into the experience of the pituitary, which has to do with the fire in the brain and the chosen desire to experience an outcome. Because our chosen desire to experience an outcome, ignited by the parathyroid, given to the pituitary, now sets this fire in motion. The fire in motion happens to be the ascending yang. I'll go into another one about the ascending yang and the descending yang. The ascending yin and the descending yin. Why are these so important? Well, the experience of what happens is I drew this map out here, which is father, father's parents, and father's grandparents. This is the map of father's side of the family that directly relates to these marriages. As you recall, I'm describing that this here, 6 and 5, which is father's, mother's, parents, they relate to this specific marriage. Now, the feelings I have in this marriage now dramatically affects my pituitary and my immune system function and my thyroid. Now, there's also other relationships here. Let me just draw you a diagram. This is a triangle between these three, your father's, mother's, parents. How did your father's mother feel about her parents? How did these parents, these great-grandparents to you, how did they feel about each other? How did this great-grandmother feel about her daughter? This regulates digestion, this brings on the experiences of allergies, this is everything related to the immune system, the nervous system, the brain function. Yes, eventually, I'll give you a map about all of the physical symptoms I can give you that I'm aware of that relate to dysfunctions in these places, because wherever there's a difficulty, for example, now there's something broken in a specific line. This specific place now produces an ongoing sequence of symptoms. We can do all these remedies of biochemical remedies and herbs and medicines, and we can chant, we can do lots of things. We can visualize, we can imagine, we can breathe. But until we actually repair this individual place, this single line of life force into the body is damaged. We get a continuous flow of damage. We get better, we get worse. We get better, we get worse. That's why these things are so important. There's another triangle here. This is the father's parents. Why is that so important? Because this relates directly to the foundational function of the heart. It relates to the liver and the capacity to heal that we've discussed. It relates to all this process about how the arterial function and the physical form of the heart actually works. This relationship is extremely important. And then you can see why when you do this map of 5, father's, mother's, mother, 3, father's, father's, mother, and 1, father's, mother. I know it's a little complicated. Give yourself a moment, give myself a moment, and recognize that these are very important. So look at this. This is your father's parents that controls fire, blood, bones, digestion, a whole bunch of very important things. This is what I call the mother-in-law. This is the mother-in-law of this wife of your father's, mother's marriage. This is why it's so important. If there is a damaged relationship here, then the descending forces that regulate the liver, heal the body, they don't work correctly. Now the same thing is true on the opposite side. We'll come back to this at another time. On the opposite side, you have the ascending forces of what we call 1, 3, and 5. 1 is mother's father. By the way, 1 regulates the entry of life force at the bottom of the spine. What is this? It's also related to the lungs. So all the difficulties about lungs and breathing and asthma, they are related to this position. This has to do with the relationship of mother to her father. So this process of being able to look at this relationship of mother's father to his parents. Yes, this regulates the parathyroid, but this also regulates the pineal, the sleep cycle, night terrors, panic attacks, a whole series of things relative to the skin condition, and the cleaning of the body, the breath. Fairly important. This other part, mother's mother, relates to the kidney function. This mother's mother relates to the kidney functions of feelings, and it's married to the lungs, the water elements. Mother's parents, mother's parents right here represents the 4 represents the Venus of the heart, the capacity to be able to receive and clean the bowels. So we could go through one by one and talk about how treachery and betrayal destroys the pancreas. One of the most destructive forces for the pancreas, jealousy. These are the emotions, some of them that relate to this pattern. Now the same thing is true. This is a triangle. These are triangles. These triangles now relate to specific conditions that manifest as symptoms in the body. So this is more than just a playful diagram. This is basically the feeling functions about how these forces move through the physical body. By being able to understand this, you can very quickly repair a broken line somewhere if you know what it is. If you know the feeling associated with each one of these and the symptoms that commonly arise, you have the opportunity to do unusual things. I'll show you how this ascending force works of the 1, 3, 5. Show you how the descending force works of the 6, 4, and 2. All of these forces regulated by the experience of the heart. This is why the relationships of the marriages of these family functions. Now, I don't know about you, but most of the marriages in my family tree were either downright difficult or tragic or separated or abusive or abandoned. Come on, we all have a family tree of chaos and pain and doubt, and we'd really like to wish that it all just goes away when they all die. Well, it doesn't go away. It stayed linked to the pericardium and the heart. It stays there because all of these are about relationships from the past. So how do we deal with having our own relationship in the world? We might want to believe that, we're just going to go on the world and we're going to be happy and we're going to forget all that and we're going to wash it away with this focus on light and well-being. And sorry, it doesn't work that way. You can be one of those people who basically says, be happy, be happy, be happy, be happy. All that really says is that you're exhibiting a form of emotional arrogance that you're happier than other people, but in reality it's usually a facade because there's an unresolved issue in the dynamics of the mother or feeling self-image. No, being a joy monger basically doesn't work. Being over here in the dark forest, which is basically where teenagers go in the goth thing. They like the darkness and the morbid. No, the morbid doesn't work either. We can't go into separation and denial and go into the horror movies and the dark things and the vampire stuff. It's over here. Opposite to the experience of be happy is the morbid side. No, the morbid side doesn't work. The be happy side doesn't work. Being real works. Being able to recognize that there's a truth about the heart. There's a truth we can learn about each one of these steps on the way. So this is basically an overview again of how these things work. Eventually, yes, this all relates to an iris. You're beginning to see that there is an iris somewhere in here. Yes? Yes. We'll get back to the iris. I love the iris, as you know, and we'll be able to relate this to different parts. We'll be able to talk about this. I'm going to share with you some wonderful things. Just be patient with me. I know I have an unusual way of doing things, but this is how I like to do it. One of my favorite things to do. Let me do it. This is really what I like to do. I love to do this. Because now I can let go of the symbolic, the intellectual, take a breath, ask. Show me the truth. I choose, with the intentions of my own soul, from my heart, to know what is true. I want to feel what's true. So now I pause, eyes open or closed. Sometimes I put on music. And I go through all of these. Basically go through them with movement, sometimes breath. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes old fat men like to dance too. All right. You have a good day. See ya.